This is Darren Martin with American Nomad News, and I'd like to introduce you to the science of garbology. Okay, here's a little lesson in garbology. What is garbology? Garbology is the science of human waste. And that's not to say feces necessarily, but it is the things that we throw away. And what do we do with them? Well, recycling is typically, if I had, say, a metal can like this one, right? This would go in Seattle, it would go in your metal recycling. Last I heard, iron, which is what this is made out of, because we know that, because magnet sticks to it. Right? We got a magnet, and that sticks to it. That makes it a ferrous metal, right? So we would throw that into a pile, and last I heard it was $120 a ton. So that's not a lot of money for that. But you can make money doing it. That's not necessarily the whole, fiscal isn't necessarily the whole thing. I use a lot of tin cans as cooking implements. I burn off all of the plastics and the coating metals, and what I have is a neutral iron or steel can afterwards. And I can use this I use sometimes as my coffee cup, and sometimes I use this to brew coffee or to cook some soup. And I've burned off all of the toxic plastics and all of the metal coatings, and what I have is a neutral can that I can use. Now, those coatings are fine for their original intended use. They're not a problem. But once you open the can and you want to cook with it, it's best to remove that material, and you can do that with heat. Now, one of the things that has happened in the last few years is these vape pens have ended up all over the streets. And they're made of fairly sturdy construction. Now, I don't use vape pens, but I recognize that they use a significant power source, and sometimes they have a very small amount of gold in them. They also tend to have some iron, some chrome, some copper, but really in small amounts. Let's see what this one's made out of. Earlier I popped this off. I used my knife to get under the edge and pop it off, and there's a little O-ring in there, so we're going to try and pull that out. Okay. And these have, a lot of times these have some material in there you'd rather not have on your skin, which is, pure nicotine. So you want to be careful about that. We're just going to take this apart and see what's inside. Okay, so what do we have here? We have a little foam, little deal. Looks like a little Cheerios or something. And we have a small plastic part. We've got these parts so far. Okay. And inside there you see that there's this metallized insert, and there's a plastic insert of some sort inside there. We want to get that metallized insert out if we can. That's really looking stubborn. It may be that the main component really is that. Sometimes these are made very, very sturdy. Oh, that looked like it moved a little, so let's see. Pushing those things off. There we go. Okay. So now what we're getting into is the interesting tidbit. This, I'm not exactly sure how these work, but I think these are the electronic trigger that when someone draws on it, it causes the device to operate, for the heater to turn on. So we're going to cut that little thing out. Okay, so we've got that little, and there's some, looks like probably some copper wire in there. When we've got a little Looks like a stainless steel part, right? So that just goes into the recycle pile. That's an actual recyclable material. All metallics are recyclable. In fact, they're the most recyclable. And it looks like we've got us a battery in here. I'm going to guess that this battery is lithium. Okay, and it says it's 90, I'm not sure what that says. Can't quite see it. I'd have to put a microscope on it, and I've got one, but it's not handy. And therein is a little heating element. Oof. And this thing sticking out is a sponge filled with an aromatic material that I'm guessing is the active ingredient, and we don't want to contact that. That stuff can be kind of strong to contact your skin. So we're gonna take a plastic bag, I'm gonna pull that sponge out if we can get it out. You can see that the oil comes off. I think what we're gonna do is we're gonna just take these wires, because they're not of any particular value to me. I'm just gonna take that off, and let's see if we can cut that. There we go. So I don't want to physically contact this too much. I don't want to break that connection too badly. Okay, so we've got our little battery there, and we've got some numbers on that, and when I can see that better, we'll figure out what that actually is. But this little guy, I don't even want to touch it with my knife. I'm going to have to heat my knife up really good at some point to clean that off. And I know that I have a stick around here somewhere I can use. Okay, I've got this old unused popsicle stick. I'm just going to push that out, and there's a little rubbery thing in there, and we're going to push that bit out. Looks like there's a bit of a plastic sleeve kind of a thing. Is it plastic or glass? I don't know. That's a plastic material. Okay. And the rest of this thing is a metal sleeve, and it's got a kind of a vinyl coating on the outside. So it could be metallized plastic, or it could be aluminum. I think it's aluminum. So what we have for recyclable, truly recyclable materials are these three. Now this is very likely lithium, but that depends on what kind of battery that is. This is either steel or aluminum. Most likely aluminum, but we're not really sure. But that's recyclable. We can throw that in the metal pile. And this we can throw in the metal pile quite easily. And the rest amounts to a mixture of toxic waste and plastic waste, which is all kind of, not super recyclable material. But these things end up in the street all the time. And that is part of the consequence of vape pens, is pollution. Thank you very much for joining me today on a Garbology Minute. So this is what the website says, and note the 1000 milliamps, 100 more than what the battery says at 900 milliamps.